Welcome and study with Tanzania Institute of Education.
How are you, student at home? Welcome to the geography subject, and my name is Mr. Daniel Julius. Today I would like to discuss or to share with you the topic known as human populations. Now, human population. Now, before we discuss the topic, we have some topic within that topic of human populations. We have at least six subtopics. And the first subtopics within human populations is known as concepts of population. I said the topic is known as human populations, and within that we have 6 subtopics, which is very important to understand. I said number 1 is the concept of populations, and within that concept we are supposed to deal with 3 main areas. Areas number 1 within that subtopics is meaning of population. But remember, I said our topic is human populations, but we are supposed to trace back where human population originated. So before knowing the meaning of human populations, we are supposed to know the meaning of population. Then after knowing the meaning of populations, we are supposed to know the characteristics of human population. Then after that is the importance. Now, why are we studying human population? Importance of human population. That is the first subtopic. Then after knowing that concept of populations and their issues related, we jump to the second subtopic. That is population distribution. Population distribution. Very important also, how people spread in an areas. So here in population distributions, we are highly focused on the physical, or it can be natural factors, as well as economic, social, and political factors that govern human populations, or that govern the population distributions. So within that areas, we are again to focus on meaning of it. Then after meaning, we are supposed to look on factors. Those factors that cause the uneven distributions, that cause the spread of people in any areas. Then after that is, you jump to the third aspect, that is population change. It can be population change or population dynamic. That human populations varies, change over times. It can rise or it can fall. So either is rising or is falling. That is all about the population change. Then after that we have another subtopic, that is population data. Population data. Now here in population data, it is very simple. I know you are aware about what is data. Fact informations. So when we talk about data, here we are dealing with those fact informations that has been collected through, as it is primary source or it can be secondary source. Then, after knowing those population data and their source, whether it is a population census or it is vital registrations or it can be sample survey, we have their significance. Then, we have an aspect here known as population problems. Population problems. Those challenges, those difficulties that is facing the populations over time. So we have whether it is social problem, economic problem, environmental problems. Together, they are regarded as population problems. And the last subtopic here is population policy. Those laws that govern the populations. Laws and regulations that govern a populations of a certain countries, whether it is implicit or explicit. Together, they are regarded as population policy. So after observing this subtopic, student, let's go to the first subtopic that is known as concept of the populations. So the reasons for outlining this subtopic is to make you aware, is to make you conscious about the whole topic of human populations. So for today, we are going to discuss the first subtopic, that is the concept of the populations, and the second one, that is how people spread in an areas, or the concept of the population distributions. So let us start with our first subtopic. So as I said earlier, that our main topic is human populations. So we are going to start with our first subtopic, that is concept of population. And remember, we are dealing with the human populations, but we need first to trace back the meaning of the populations so as to be aware about the human populations. So as a populations, it is very simple. It can be a group of organism, yes, organism, or a group of objects. Everyone is aware about what is an object or anything, such as trees, a group of trees. Trees. That is a population. When we have a combination of many trees in one area, stayed there for a long period of times, that is a population. Having a large movement of animals or cattle, that is a population of cattle, whether it's goats, cows, sheep. But when we talk about migratory birds, those are populations of birds. But what is important to be considered there is their location and the time. That's what I said. Here it is all about, refers to the number of objects. Number of objects or organism found in a certain geographical area. Found in a certain geographical area, or it can be in a particular area. So when we talk about geographical areas, it can be organism, it can be object that is found in an area, such as a village, such as a district, such as a region, such as a country, or such as a continent, in a specific period of time. Now we are together. we have two main areas. We have organism, we have geographical area or particular areas, and the last aspect, it must be time. So we considered this is a populations, whether it's trees, animals, or when it is highly having people. Now we said it is a human population. So after knowing the meaning of the populations, now the second, let's look on human population. If you are aware about the populations, now we have the new words here, humans. So it is very simple. A number of people, where it is, where we said numbers of objects. Now the object now, or the organism is people. So refer or refers to the number of people. Number of people. It can be number of people found or live. It can be found or live in a certain geographical. Remember, I said geographical areas, it can be a village, or such as a village. It can be a village, or it can be a region in specific period of time. So when we have the populations of people who have been stayed in an areas, whether it is a village, whether it is a regions, but in a specific period of time, such as it can be 2 days, 3 days, 1 year, 2 years, etc., etc. They are regarded as a population. Now, after knowing that meaning of human populations, let's see the other areas that is concerning with the human populations. That is the characteristics of human population. So we have already seen the meaning of the populations. Let's see the characteristics of human population. The characteristics. What are the characteristics of human populations? So we have different characteristics, or we have several characteristics of human populations. And one of their characters is human population is dynamic. I said human population is dynamic. Why I said human population is dynamic? That means the human populations, it change over time. That means it can rise, or it can fall. It can increase or decrease over time. So it varies. That means it's not constant, it's not static. The human population, my friend, is not static. It changes over times. So we have some of the variables, we have some of the factors that cause the variations, or that cause the change of human populations. So in simple, when we said human population is dynamic, yeah, it is true, it is dynamic because it changes over time. So we have some of the variables that cause the change in human populations. Those variables, it can be, we have three main variables here. That is birth rate, death, and migration. So these are three determinants. These are three components that make human populations to change over time. So when I said birth rates, here are highly concerning with the number of live birth. Numbers of live birth per year, per 1,000 of the populations. So the birth rate, it can be high or it can be low. So when we talk about numbers of live birth, numbers of live birth per year, per 1,000 of the populations, this birth rate, it can either increase or decrease, because I said here the population, human population is dynamic or human population change. So for the case of birth rate, when there is increase in birth rate, this leads to the increase in the population. When we have decrease in birth rate, this leads to the declines in populations. Now we have some of the factors. Here in birth rate, most of the LDCs, most of less developed countries, for example, those countries which is found in sub-Saharan African countries, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, etc. The birth rate is high because of several factors. Are you aware about those factors which cause the increase in birth rate? For example, the use of poor cultural beliefs. Poor cultural beliefs. For example, the using of a polygamy system. Most of the pastoral society, they have more than one wife. So this contributed. Each wife has their own children. So this again contributed to the increase in populations. Early marriage, forced marriage, etc., etc. This contributed to the high birth rate. But for the case of highly developed countries or those metropolitan countries, their populations is controlled. So the population is controlled because of adoptions of family planning. So the use of family planning, this facilitate or lead to the declines in populations. So here in birth rate, whether it is high or is low, it is highly determined by several variables. I said most of the LDCs, their population is high because of high fertility rate. The fertility rate, I said, it is caused by several factors. Either is adoptions of those poor cultural beliefs or failure to use family planning programs, etc., etc., facilitate or lead to the increase in the populations. But the vice versa is true. I said the metropolitan countries or highly advanced economic countries, their population is controlled. For example, most of the Scandinavian countries, they have decided to adopt the family planning techniques. We have several techniques. For example, those families which were well-off families in Scandinavian countries are those some of the couples, they have decided or they were given a lot of incentives or they were paid by the government because of not having child. So these contribute to the decline in birth rate. In China, they have decided to adopt one-child policy. All these contribute to the decline in populations. But for the case of death rate, again, this is number of deaths per year per 1,000 of the populations. So the death rate in a year, again, it is caused by several factors. In most of the LDCs, some of sub-Saharan African countries, their populations decline because of high death rates. Now, the high death rate, it is caused by several factors. For example, poor health services. Poor health services. Most of the interior part of Africa, they are dominated by having poor health services. For example, inadequate hospitals, inadequate health centers, inadequate dispensaries, inadequate doctors and nurses. So this again contributed to the increase in death rate. Also, high infant mortality rate. Now, I want to talk about infant mortality rates. My friends, here in death rate, it can be of three types. Whether it is infant mortality rate, whether it is child mortality rate, or it is adult mortality rate. So when we talk about infant mortality rate, we are talking about those babies, those children who fail to celebrate their first birthday. Infant, they are not able because of several factors. Poor infrastructures, lack of doctors and nurses, lack of health centers, all these make to the increase in infant mortality rate. So are those children, those babies, who's fail to celebrate their first birthday. But the second one is child mortality rate. These are under 5 death rate. Under 5 death rate. So it can be those children who fail to reach 6 years. That's why I said it is under 5 death. Again, it is caused by the several factors. And the last one is adult death rate. This it is highly the death rate for the adult people. So I said for the case of death rate, whether it is high, this leads to the decline in populations. When the death rate is low, for the case of metropolitan countries, the death rate there is highly controlled. Why it is controlled? It is because of several factors. Improvement of science and technologies contribute. Improvement of transport and communications. This make easy transfer of those patients from their homes to the hospitals, from their hospitals to their homes. So this enable or lead to the reductions in death rate. Having of enough hospitals, nurses, and doctors, this again contributed to the decline in death rate. So for the case of death rate, it is well understood. Then I said migrations. You have been moving from your home to the school, school to the homes. That is a movement. Being from the home to the school, school to the homes, very simple. That is a movement of people from one areas to another areas. Now that movement, it can be either seasonally or permanently. It can be either internal migrations or external migration. So that movement, again, it can cause increase or decrease in populations. Now, how these migrations cause increase or decrease? We have sub-categories here. When people move out from their areas and decided to go to the another areas, their point of origins here, they cause decline in the populations. And after reaching or after arriving to the next place, this leads to the increase in populations. That's why we have these two types of migrations. We have these immigrants and emigrants. Very important. Very important, these two terminologies here. When a person is moving into, moving into an area, it can lead to the increase in a population. But when someone is moving out from an area, it can lead to the decrease in a population. That's why I said a human population is dynamic, because it is highly influenced, it is highly affected by these three main variables: birth rate, death rate, and migrations. So birth rate, it can change, it can increase or it can decrease. Death rate, it can increase or decrease, are the same as migrations, whether it's pull or push factors. New words here: push, those force someone from their areas and decided to move into another areas. Pull, those which attract people from one areas to another areas. Again, it can cause the increase or decrease in a populations. So that is our first characteristics. Then the second one are the populations. Populations is an evil, human population is an evil distributed. Human population is unequal distributed. That means some areas is having high populations while some areas is having low population. So the variations of several factors make the human populations to be uneven distributed. So when I said this, uneven distributed or unequal distributed, that means some of the areas is having high populations, some of the areas is having low populations. So what makes some areas to having high populations? A good example, most of towns, cities, or most of the urban areas, their population is usually high. So many people from the rural areas are highly attracted to settle in urban areas because of better social services which is found there, because of employment opportunities, because of peace and security compared to the rural areas. So most of the rural areas, they are characterized either by having a scattered settlement in which their populations now is very low. Or again, it can be unevenly distributed because of other factors. Soil, they make the variations. Those areas having very fertile soils, they are highly attracting people compared to those areas having unfertile soil, or it is a less fertile soil. For example, some part of Tanzania, the lake zone, those part of Mwanza, Musoma, Bukobas, they are highly dominated by having a very fertile soil. While the central part, and some of the western part, the central part, that is Dodoma, some part of Mpanda, and other regions, their soil is not good. They are highly characterized by having a waterlogged soil. It is highly dominated by having a leached soil, which do not highly encouraging the well growth of crops. So, student, for today is enough. Let's end up here, or let's make our lesson to be ended here, and let's put some questions here, so as next time when we meet again, we are going to discuss those questions and make sure that you attend those questions. So here I'm going to write 3 questions. The question number one is differentiate population and the human population. Then number 2, outline 3 variables that cause population change. And the last one, use the knowledge of human population to explain population change and the population change and the population distribution. Okay, student, make sure that you copy all the questions and attempt on your exercise book. Then after attempting, we are going to meet on the coming lesson. So I would like to say thank you for listening, and I said bye, but I said my name is Mr. Daniel Julius, a geography teacher. Thank you again.